Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Leaders Playlist. I am your host, Renee Craven, and today I am joined by Anita Burke as we discuss the book Emotional Agility by Susan David. We hope you enjoy. Hi, Anita, how are you?
Hi, Renee. Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Today we're talking about the book Emotional Agility, Get Unstuck, Embrace Change, and Thrive in Work and Life by Susan David.
Yeah, this was a different one for us.
It was a little bit different, and I was happy that you suggested that we read it because I have read this book before. It had been a little while, though, since I had read it, so it was really good to kind of see how my takeaways were different from last time to this time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you get anything different out of it, do you think?
I find with the books that I read, it depends on what I'm going through at the time I'm reading the book. So different things resonate with me at different times because I'm pretty sure I read this before COVID. So there's things in here that mean more to me now than they did when I read it the first time, definitely. Yeah. What were some of your key highlights from the book?
Yeah, there were a few things, actually. I really liked when she talked about values and living with intention. And I think it's one of the things that is kind of buzzy at the moment, or has been for a while, that talk of values and intention. But just it hit differently with me, I think. She explained it in a way that was more about not being rigid in your views of what's right and wrong, and also about just being conscious of what you think is the way that you want to make decisions and applying that in your everyday rather than it being like these big values that you feel like you can explain in a couple of short sentences. They're much larger and smaller in a way. Like there's those little micro pieces throughout your day that you can do that mean that you're living in line with your values.
I liked that she kind of said, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. You don't have to be fake or overly positive about things and kind of ignore how you're feeling. Just name it and take a couple of seconds and figure out how you're going to respond to whatever the situation is that is causing you to feel that way. But yeah, definitely naming your feelings.
Yeah, the other thing she said on that was that I thought was helpful was to consider using the third person to talk about stress and regulating your reactions to things and almost distance yourself from it. So I thought that was really interesting, a different way to look at it. And she also talked about the fact you've got a choice in how you react and how you acknowledge the feelings and the emotions, but then use that as information around what you do about that. That those thoughts don't necessarily have to be actions. You can use those thoughts as information.
She talked about, there was a little bit of a quiz in chapter 3 where she was trying to suss out whether we were bottlers of emotions, so pushing emotions to the side and just getting on with stuff, shoving away unwanted feelings. And then there were the brooders who would kind of just worry about things, can't let go, struggle to compartmentalize as they obsess over or hurt, perceived failure, shortcoming, or anxiety. It was interesting because I think sometimes I'm definitely a brooder. But sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I do bottle things up as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's almost situational, isn't it? It really depends on who is involved and what's involved. One of the other things I really liked was her talk about the examining your own personal rules and those things that become just automatic and why they're there and where they came from and what it restricts you from as well. Like the fact I often say, I don't dance, I'm not a dancer. But then that's such an automatic response from me that do I really believe that? Or could I go out and have a good time and dance with the girls?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've just created that rule in my head, and does it actually apply?
The thing that resonated with me more so this time around was something that she refers to as emotional labor. She defines emotional labor as the energy that goes into maintaining the public face required in any job and, in fact, in any human interaction. And I remember in book club, we talked about this in our hybrid online in the office kind of world that we have now, and how a lot of people don't turn their cameras on. And maybe that is because they just can't be bothered keeping that face on. Because something that I've realized being remote is that when you're on camera, you're often being projected onto a ginormous TV screen in a meeting room. So you're not human size, you're like superhuman size. So any facial expressions that you do or any body language that you do have is super, super obvious. So sitting in those kinds of meetings, knowing that you're on this ginormous screen, I kind of try and make sure my face doesn't give my thoughts away or my feelings away and things like that. And sometimes I just can't do that. Anyone who knows me knows that my face does give me away a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think when you're on video, on camera a lot, you do almost feel like you're performing a little bit, that you need to sort of look enthusiastic and interested and engaged, and not distracted. So it does become a little bit of a performance.
But if you were in the meeting room physically, you wouldn't be putting on that performance. So it's really interesting. She calls that surface acting, where you are more likely to fake your emotions, and you do that in the office as well. It can lead to lower mental health and burnout because it's just so exhausting. And I wonder if that's why at the end of the day, I just kind of crash and deload on the couch or go for a walk or something like that. I've been performing all day. I'm really, really tired, and I just need to be me for a bit.
Yeah. And it's probably different for introverts and extroverts as well. Or maybe not. Maybe extroverts just find it easier to perform for a longer period of time.
Was there anything that you felt was missing from the book?
No, well, maybe a little bit more in the work context. I mean, she has a whole chapter at the end dedicated to raising emotionally agile children, which as a mum I found really interesting and made me think about being really intentional with my choices and how I do things with my daughter, and acknowledging and accepting her feelings without dismissing them, which is also kind of on trend for parenting styles at the moment. But yeah, in terms of missing, I think maybe a little bit more for the work context and for leaders and different levels in an organisation, and how you show up as a leader in an emotionally agile way, perhaps. But it's more of a self-help book than a team leadership help book. So yeah, I can understand why that's not there as much as the personal stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I listened to a really good podcast with Susan and Adam Grant the other day. They do talk a little bit more in a work or an organizational kind of context. It was a really good listen. So, the book's kind of part one, I guess. It's the theory. It gets you thinking. There's a lot more to it, and there's a lot more that you can learn about it. So
yeah, I guess that's, it's all layers, isn't it? Can't just take one thing. It also sort of adds to your learning.
Yeah. Who would you recommend read this book?
I would initially recommend this to people who I think are quite emotionally aware already, and maybe looking for the next step in the next sort of thought triggers, and how they manage their own emotions and that sort of thing. But I don't think I would recommend it to someone who is not in touch with their emotions at all.
Yeah.
I think it would be going a bit too far for them.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be a bit too wishy-washy or airy-fairy or whatever word they use to describe it. Definitely, I agree. They've got to have that level of self-awareness. And I think it would be good for coaches like us who do have that level of self-awareness to kind of understand themselves a little bit more, but also so that they can coach others that they see that are struggling with the way that they behave or the way that they react to stuff. Great. Thanks, Anita. Till next book.
Thanks, Renee. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Leaders Playlist. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to share our podcast with your family, friends, and work colleagues. Until next episode.